It's said in our town that when a jack-o'-lantern's candle burns out on Halloween night, its smile doesn't fade, it twists into something real, something hungry. Emma never believed the story. To her, it was just another silly warning parents told their kids so they'd keep their porch lights glowing. At 16, she thought she was far too old to be spooked by old tales. Halloween was her favorite holiday, and this year she wanted her pumpkin to stand out. She carved it carefully that afternoon, triangle eyes, a heart-shaped nose, and a wide grin that stretched across its orange face. By the time dusk settled over the town, Emma placed it proudly on the porch railing. She lit the candle inside, watching the flame dance and flicker. Its warm glow spilled across the wooden boards, inviting trick-or-treaters with bags full of candy. At first, everything was normal. Kids in costumes came and went, laughing as they passed. But as the hours dragged on and the streets emptied, Emma began to notice something odd. Each time she glanced at her pumpkin, its grin seemed wider. Not by much, just enough to make her heart skip a beat. She laughed nervously, brushing it off. Just the shadows, she whispered to herself. Just my imagination. But by 11:30, when the wind grew sharp and the streetlights flickered, the grin had stretched into something unnatural, an open mouth, curling at the edges like it was swallowing the night. Emma leaned closer, her breath fogging in the cold air. The flame inside sputtered. Then the pumpkin's lid shifted, rising as if invisible fingers were pushing it from within. And from the hollow mouth came a whisper, faint at first but unmistakable. "Emma, let me in." Her stomach dropped. She stumbled back, nearly tripping on the porch steps. Shaking, she blew out the candle. But instead of fading to black, the pumpkin kept glowing, its grin now alive with a sickly green light. Its carved eyes blinked, like wet sockets, watching her. Emma slammed the door shut, her heart hammering. She pressed her back against the wood, listening. At first, silence. Then, scratching. Not just on the porch, but along the windows, down the walls, circling the house. The whisper returned, louder now, crawling into her ears. "Let me in. Emma, let me in." She tried to drown it out with music, with the TV, with anything, but the sound seeped through every noise. It was inside the walls. Inside her head. Sometime past midnight, she worked up the courage to peek outside. The pumpkin was gone. Her porch was empty. But etched into the wood was a black, charred mark, shaped like a mouth, still grinning. The neighbors found her the next morning, sitting in the living room, pale as bone, rocking back and forth. She wouldn't speak. She wouldn't move. Her eyes never left the porch. And from that year on, no one ever saw Emma carve another pumpkin. But every Halloween night, when the streets are quiet and the wind carries whispers, her porch glows faintly, as though a candle still burns inside a grin that should never have existed. Every jack-o'-lantern has a face. But in the town of Ashbrook, people whispered that not all of them were carved by human hands. Some bore the mark of Elias Crane, the lantern maker. More than a century ago, Elias lived in a crooked old house on the edge of town. He was a quiet man, secretive, with eyes too dark and hands too steady. Every Halloween, he lined his porch and barn with pumpkins unlike any others. Their faces weren't playful or silly like the townsfolk carved. No, These pumpkins had expressions so disturbingly lifelike that children cried just passing by them. Their mouths twisted in silent screams, their eyes wide with frozen terror. No one knew how Elias made them. Some whispered that he bargained with spirits, others swore that he carved not with knives, but with souls. And then the children began to vanish. One boy gone one Halloween. A girl the next. Parents locked their doors, searched the woods, pleaded for help. But nothing was ever found. Yet every year, more pumpkins appeared outside Elias's barn, and their faces looked hauntingly familiar. One cold October night, 3 friends, Thomas, Henry, and Caleb, dared each other to sneak inside. They waited until the moon was high and crept through the rattling barn doors. The air smelled of rot and wax. Their lanterns flickered across rows and rows of glowing pumpkins. Dozens. Maybe hundreds. At first, the boys were in awe. Then Caleb gasped, pointing. "That one, that's Sarah Whitmore. She disappeared last year." The others leaned closer, their stomachs sinking. He was right. The carved pumpkin bore Sarah's exact face, her mouth frozen in a cry for help. One by one, the boys recognized more, the missing children, each one immortalized in orange flesh. The barn door slammed shut. Heavy footsteps creaked across the floorboards. Elias Crane appeared, his shadow stretching long against the walls. His knife gleamed under the pumpkin light. His lips curled into a grin too wide for his face. "Every face," he rasped, his voice like a saw through bone, "must live forever. Carved in fire." The boys screamed, scattering in the dark. Only Thomas escaped that night. Henry and Caleb were never seen again. But weeks later, 2 new pumpkins appeared outside the barn. Their faces were unmistakable. To this day, Ashbrook children are warned, never carve a pumpkin after midnight. Because on Halloween, the lantern maker still walks, searching for new faces to preserve in his eternal harvest. They say you should never use a stolen candle to light your jack-o'-lantern. Because the flame remembers where it came from, and it always comes back for you. Maya had waited until the last minute to finish her Halloween decorations. She carved a perfect pumpkin, round, bright, with sharp, jagged teeth. But when she reached for a candle, she realized she had none left. Every store was closed. Her friends were waiting for her at the party. She needed light. In desperation, she walked to the cemetery at the edge of town. The place was silent, the iron gates groaning as she pushed them open. The wind rattled the trees, and half-melted candles still burned faintly on old gravestones. Their tiny flames flickered red against the cracked stone. She hesitated, then grabbed one from a mossy grave, its wax still warm. "I'll return it tomorrow," she muttered nervously, hurrying home. When she placed it inside her jack-o'-lantern and lit it, the whole pumpkin came alive. The glow wasn't warm or golden. It was crimson, throbbing like a heartbeat. Neighbors stopped to stare, whispering about how strangely bright it was. Maya smiled, proud of her work. But as night deepened, the glow turned darker, and the air grew colder. When she walked past it, she swore she heard a whisper. At first, soft. Then clearer. A voice calling her name from inside the hollow. "Maya." Shaking, she blew out the flame. But it didn't go out. The light grew stronger, burning from within. She lifted the lid and froze. The candle was no longer wax. It was a shriveled blackened finger, its tip glowing like a burning wick. The whisper became a scream. Her pumpkin split down the middle, spilling thick black smoke that poured into her house. Shapes began to form in the mist, figures rising, pale and rotten, with eyes glowing red. They stretched their bony arms toward her. "Return what you stole," they chanted in one dreadful voice. Maya stumbled back, screaming, but the figures closed in. The walls seemed to melt into darkness, and the cold of the grave swallowed her whole. By morning, her porch was empty. Only ashes remained where the pumpkin had sat a day. At the cemetery, the stolen candle had returned to its place, burning brighter than ever. And if you leaned close enough to hear it, you'd swear the flame whispered in a trembling voice, Maya's voice, begging for release.